Hi, welcome back to the Veach Case and M-Cave mystery. Today, welcome if you're here in this live chat. You can share your thoughts, opinions down below as we do go along. Today, what I want to do is take a look at what Sean Horlacher, also now known as Sean Carner, I believe, right? Because he did a live stream recently. It's to do with, like talks about the M Cave, his previous hikes, and then the other standard type of stuff, whether it be spirituality, political stuff, etc., right? I believe there was a certain portion where he referenced me. So, showed a brief little clips, go through them, analyse if need be, question them, whatever, just to clear up any misunderstandings, okay? So let's get into the first part.
Seems like somebody got the Wrath guy. He talked about the keyhole and then made a new video saying he was wrong in his last video. I heard something about his narrative, like going the other way.
So first of all, you may be wondering, what is the keyhole? Well, the keyhole is down Pitch Canyon, or at least approaching it. Before, you need to go over Wild Horse Pass. Silver Hills calls it Saddle Horse Pass. And then you turn west and go that way. And on the right-hand side, there's like rock walls going all the way down. There is a supposed M cave, and then to the left of it, you've got the supposed covered M cave. And in between both, I believe, that's where you've got a shallow cave with a hole at the back facing wall. It's a shallow cave, if you want to call it that. And when Sean was there at the time, I believe it was 2016, he just happened to capture, and it was on part 2 of 3 hike, capture something appearing in front of the hole or behind the hole and then disappearing once again. And basically, the odd person or two did detect it, notice it, then I did. I was not the first one to notice it, but I was the first one to cover it on YouTube. So it's good of Sean to credit me, but to be realistic, I am not ultimately the very first person to ever notice it, okay? But I was on YouTube on that specific platform. Does that make sense? So basically, there was that theory, that talk, that it looked like there was some kind of creature spying on him at the time, how it just appeared and disappeared. It looked spooky. When further analysing it, editing it, changing the filters, the effects to make it look a bit clearer, enhancing it, slowing it down, replaying it back and forth, zooming in on it, it did look like an eye. With time though, because I constantly referred back to it, reanalyzed, reassessed, ultimately to try and understand it from other people's perspectives. Because, like with anything, not everyone agreed. There was hardline, die-hard people that agreed, and then there was some that were thinking outside of the box and trying to be more level-headed, right? Just to understand it from their point of view, I put myself into their shoes. So I replayed it back, forth. I took in mind the environment and everything that was present around. And with trying to understand it, the mechanisms, the visual quality, the focus issues, the lift mechanism going up and down, the depth of field, all the psychological effects and explanations which can, have an impact on your perception when watching it back, right? It made a bit more sense. And it was only at that point, I think it took like a few months to actually see it from the other side. That's when I thought, I see. It probably wasn't a creature. It was just, in fact, an obstruction. But because of the camera, the quality, the movement of oneself, that's what caused that illusion, an illusion, right? And I did go in depth to it. Now, if you truly want to see those videos, the edited ones, the ones like zoomed in so you could see that potential, that supposed original eye popping up, I'll provide links down below in the comment section. Make sure to check them out afterwards, as well as the one where I try solving it, attempt, okay? Now, this is the thing. I've not been silenced. You saw that comment in the chat. You could read it off as a joke. Oh, look, there's Raph, changing in behaviour, changing with opinions. They've got to him. The men in black have kidnapped Raph. He's been abducted or abducted by aliens and been threatened to change the narrative. because he's in danger. And to be honest, for most part of it, when it comes to the Kenny Veach case, that's how it was for a while. You change your opinion with rational thinking, logical thinking, and you provide a valid explanation behind something, you get accused, you get called out, you get labelled, etc. You know, bits and bobs, when I look back now, maybe the Kenny Veach community, not all of it, but some of it, some parts were a bit toxic. I mean, just like with the Dylan Browns one, that's just as dodgy too, right? You know, it's not just like one over the other. You see crossovers between the different cases, okay? But, you know, is to think, for some reason, because with the Kenny Veach case, it's more mysterious and less of a crime compared to the Dylan Browns case. Unanswered questions, different theories, you start thinking, oh, maybe that theory, that conclusion might tie into a person trying to get involved in the case, and because they've changed and maybe they've been impacted by whatever is out there, you know, that type of stuff. So maybe because it's just a mystery and it attracts certain people with mindsets and very observant behavior, sometimes a bit over the top and lack of reasoning, it impairs their judgment, and then they start assuming everything, right? So that's what you're starting to see displayed in this video of Sean's and some of the commenters, as well as seen by me in the past on my channel back then.
And like I said before, Wrath used to hit me up in the beginning. So he emails me, look into it, yada yada, and he's all excited. He thinks he's going to get 1 billion views on YouTube or something. And he's all happy about, like, oh yeah, let's do this, you know, like, let's work together, it's freaking, you know.
All excited. I'd say arguably that's exaggerative language. I was somewhat interested because it's never really been talked about before on YouTube, so I thought it was an opportunity to spread awareness. No harm in that. And in addition, when you look back at the majority of my videos in the past, you'll see that I do have somewhat of a straight face. That's just the way I am. But, you know, there'll be times here and there where it might be a bit more appropriate to act in a different way. But as you know, we're covering a mystery, we're covering a case, whether it be a disappearance case and it's unknown of, or it's like a true crime one. You got to keep to somewhat of an appropriate behaviour when you're talking about certain subjects, right? No harm. If you start joking around, being all loud, boisterous, at that moment in time when trying to cover a specific thing, are people more or less likely to take you serious? Probably less likely. Credibility is out of the window. So there needs to be a level of control and balance, just like with many other things, right? As for the line, oh, he wants to get billions and billions of views, once again, quite an exaggerative piece of language displayed. I can possibly see what he's bordering onto, and tying it in with the later part in this video, is that by using this piece of material from somebody else, I could benefit in some way and get lots of views and grow in that sense. I mean, it's happened several times and you've heard it in that way, being told with other channels on YouTube here and there. But I think the reality is, what we need to do now is go onto my channel and I'll show you my most viewed videos, and it will reveal the ultimate reality, okay? So here we are on my channel. We'll go to the most popular video. What's that? Oh, 241,000 views on an unrelated video to the Kenny Veach case. What a surprise. Not. Dark ambient Viking warhorn sound. Followed by another video at 146,000 views, followed by a strange female voice captured on Kenny Veach's own video. Once again, a separate piece of material, 139,000 views. A dark ambient warhorn, 111,000 views. Strange activity at the M Cave mine. This was to do with Scott Nuttall's footage as well as Kenny's original. 106,000 views. And then we come across the Keyhole one. And then shortly after that, at 71,000 views, it's yet another independent video analysis of the unreleased hike footage of Kenny Veach, which was posted by Sharon Pilgrim. So you see a pattern, but majority of these videos are arguably unrelated to Sean Horlacher's own footage, right? So there's always alternatives. But understandably, you appreciate and acknowledge from all angles, from hiker to hiker, because of the time relevancy. But it is evident on here that my most popular videos are not mystery ones, as you can clearly see there. If we go on to shorts as well, which is another form of media in under 60 seconds, go to the most popular one. Oh, look, you got another Viking Warhorn, 62,000 views. We've got For Honor, I Don't Speak Japanese cutscene at 31,000 views. And then there is an independent Kenny Veach analysis at 13,000 views, followed by Rainbow Six Siege Jump Scare by a Bomber at 11,000 views. Now, with that demonstrated, let's move on to what Sean has to say next.
And then I'm like, yeah, okay, great, man. Sure, you can use my videos for your channel to help you build it. Sure. He had like 35 subscribers.
Incorrect. I had around roughly 175 subscribers at the time. And then later on in the space of a year, I managed to get 1,000 subscribers. Fast forward to 2022, in a space of a year, I managed to gain 3,303 subscribers. So I managed to improve there, and a total of 1.3 million total views.
Okay. And it's like all of a sudden he's getting into the thousands mark because he's using my content. And I said I was okay with that. I like that there's more publicity getting to the story. Perfectly cool.
I disagree to an extent with that statement by Sean, as I was getting 1,000 or close to 1,000 views on my own videos to begin with, right? Just before I covered the Keyhole, I did 1 to 2 videos looking at Kenny Veach's playlist, right? Where it disappeared and it was unknown of at the time, unexplainable. That did gain a fair few views, which then notified me and made me realise I might be heading in the correct direction looking at the Kenny Veach case, considering I've looked at it in the background for a while in the past. So that's what made me transition on and keep on going. So there were independent videos of my own to begin with, okay? But it's good, and I do acknowledge Sean's vision. It's good how he envisioned it as well, about spreading awareness of the case, of Kenny, or a finding within. Because the more people that know about it, the more people that will talk about it, and higher chances of the correct people with the right resources coming on in. And that was clearly evident how new hikers came in along the way. The likes of Scott Natal, Jay Silverheels, Jay Chuck, Mystery Hikes, SB Vegas Adventure, even Aquachigger making an appearance as well. And then some other individuals as well in the background. So you can see it has had an effect, and it's encouraged people, it's enticed people to go out there, and even just encouraged others to do background research and maybe find other stuff, and even certain Veach family members like Susan reaching out as well. So that coverage and exposure on the case has had a positive overall for most part of it, right? You know, just like with the Dylan Rounds case, you look at that one, it's about keeping it alive. Because if you don't keep it alive, it dies down and it goes quiet. And the difference with Kenny Veach and Dylan Rounds, Kenny Veach is a cold case, Dylan Rounds is still ongoing. But the Dylan Rounds case could end up like the Kenny Veach one, at least online, if the coverage stops. And we're starting to see a decline in coverage on the Dylan Rounds case in recent time, okay? Not that it's completely ended, but compared to how it was in the past with more YouTubers covering it, it's no longer like that. It is understandable, but I'm just making an observation, okay? Let's continue.
And then he started getting the weird threat stuff that, shit, I've been getting for fucking 5 years.
So what does he mean by the weird threat stuff? Well, first of all, he's referring to my own experience he's applying it to himself as well because he relates as he supposedly experienced it himself, which I'm not aware of, and I'll explain shortly. But in my own experience, the weird messages, the threats consisted of, first of all, negative comments saying bad things will happen to me, briefly warning me to stop, and then going into a more deeper cryptic route, sending binary coded messages, Morse code messages, binary into Morse code, into German translation, then Spanish, then English, using a mixture of Arabic text, using binary code, changing all the zeros to O's and all the ones to L's, so you got to manually change it all yourself. And then at the end of the day, at the end of each code, it would reveal a new message. It would be weird. It would be talking about location. It would be talking about keep your eyes open, make sure you're aware. They're all over the place. We use force if necessary to keep people quiet. You need to stop or the same will happen to you. It was bordering onto that stuff. And because I've not experienced something like that at the time, it was new to me. But I was somewhat alert in the sense that I'm prepared for the worst. I always think of the worst case scenarios. That's just how I am. That's how I've adapted through previous years of negative stuff happening, lots of stuff going wrong in life. You know, you just get used to it and, you know, you just think, right, what's going to happen next? What needs to be done? What steps need to be taken? That's pretty much it. And as for these like weird accounts showing up here and there responsible for it, or creating like mass accounts, almost like minions, that occurred as well. It was weird. It was odd, right? It's not normal, first of all. Cryptic messages, right? You know, has anyone else experienced that? List it down below in the chat if you have personally. We've not seen it in the Dylan Rounds case, not yet. But we have seen fake accounts, impersonation ones, which also occurred in the Kenny Veach case, which led to slander, defamation, trying to make me look bad, trying to put a bad name on me. But it was resolved, okay? Now, in relation to Sean, I personally wasn't aware he experienced the same exact thing. I know he was threatened, but it seemed to be more on a physical, serious scale, right? And not just simple codes online, right? So that's the first to me hearing that. But, you know, it makes sense for him to receive resistance in general because he's one of the originals, boots on ground, documenting stuff, going in hard at the time. You know, it just seems inevitable. Just like the people in the Dylan Rounds case, like Ty Corbin and Lance Kelly, boots on ground, directly out there, searching all about, looking for a missing person, and supposedly the threats and warnings from whoever, maybe from individuals that don't want that missing person to be found. Just like in the Kenny Veach case, the same exact scenario. Then it does make you think maybe there are other people responsible, possibly, for the disappearance of the missing individual. You never know.
And he's like, dude, what's going on? I was like, welcome to the club, man. Now, if you engage with that stuff, it's going to make it worse.
So, I can and will acknowledge from what Sean said himself that engaging equals more further resistance down the line. You know, even other viewers leaving comments said the same thing. But I will say something. Whilst engaging with resistance, which led to more resistance down the line, what ultimately happened to me? That's the big question, and I can answer it. So despite going through all the threats, the messages, the codes, defamation, slander, fake accounts, troll accounts saying they're going to get me, I went on to make another 100 plus videos on the Kenny Veach case. You see? What happened to all these dodgy accounts? They faded away with time. And some of them were cleansed, right, by YouTube for obvious reasons, going against terms of service, right? Whether it be impersonation, threats, harassment, it was dealt with, okay? And I'll say one more thing. It's important that you respond to levels of resistance, because if you keep completely silent, they will creep and creep and creep and suffocate you. You need to set the record straight early on. So you reinforce where you stand, your position, and the people that look up to you or listen to you, and even just random viewers that come along with time. If you say nothing, who are they more likely to believe, right? There's no harm in raising awareness, not just with the Veach case, but also yourself and the position you're in at that time. Sure, there'll be other moments where you can't say this, you can't do that, or it's not worth it because it doesn't lead to a good outcome. But in terms of my experience, in terms of my reality, the way I dealt with the resistance within the case throughout that year, and also other background stuff going on with the odd individual in 2021 from a different country, begin with M, I was somewhat okay at the end of it. You know, even now, do we have lingering things coming on over from the Veach case? No, it died. Obviously, it can always resurface, but the actual process, natural at the time, you see the result it yielded. It was somewhat successful. I continued on with my stamina and coverage. Then I moved on, transitioned to the Dylan Rounds case and did the same exact thing. About 170 videos in, 4 months straight, nearly every single day, most videos nearly being an hour long or more or just under. You see the level of stamina, consistency, and also responding to resistance at the same time because of balance. It can be done, right? People always worry and complain and say, no, don't focus on the negatives. Don't focus on the bad people, because if you do, the whole case will crumble. The whole focus will fall. And, you know, it just won't flow the same. You're going to go backwards on progress. But this is the thing, because balance can be displayed by me in a case. Not only can I look at multiple points of views, but I can also look at the resistance, and I can also look at trying to solve a case or trying to solve and tie up a loose end within one. It can all be done almost at once, right? Does that happen with everyone? No. But on this occasion, it's somewhat doable.
So Wrath is all freaking out.
I wouldn't say one was panicking or over panicking, just simply being proactive, reaching out to different people, different avenues, just to see what other people thought about it, or if other people had a similar experience. There's no harm in that, being proactive, instead of just sitting back and letting it happen and consume you, right?
He's getting these binary coded threats, which I got that too. And it's coming from like users that have a freaking slit eyeball as the profile.
So the reference there made by Sean Horlacher about the eyeball slit like a reptilian eye as a profile picture. Yes, that was one of the main individuals that was threatening me, known as Lucatola. Okay? And they went by the odd other account or two, right? And, you know, the significance or relevance of that is all directly associated with the original video of the Keyhole creature, right? I mean, it's almost like a mystery within a mystery, right? You discover something which is strange at the time, and then it leads to someone thinking, oh, now it's time to create the character of maybe the Reptilian and pretend to be one and scare that individual into submission, right? I guess that's the aim of it from back then, because it was a bit of a coincidence how before covering the Keyhole, there was zero resistance, but as soon as it was covered and uploaded publicly, so anyone could watch it, that's where it all started. That's the catalyst, that's the key turning point, and that is what I was saying. That's how it was with the Veach case. With the Dylan Rounds case, the key turning point is when I showed that clip of Lance and Heavy D inside of that mine shaft, in which Heavy D and Lance were talking about Kurt Wadsworth being a groomer and possibly grooming Dylan Rounds. After I covered that clip, analysed it and shared it publicly, because it was already public, but I shared it as a clip, like an individual piece, I received resistance. There was fake accounts, impersonation accounts, slander, all that. No threats, not up to now, but all the fake accounts and all that typical drama. So it's all about key turning points. You look at the resistance, you assess it, you analyze it, then look back at the key event. What action? Was it by you? Was it something you said, something you did, or was it external? You look at that time frame of when it all went downhill, right? And then you can understand the pattern and the motives when looking back retrospectively and then looking forwards into the future, foreshadowing events which could follow, right?
He started hitting me up and he's like, dude, I don't know what to do. They're freaking threatening me. I'm like, stop playing their game, man. And he was like messaging him back and all types of shit. And Wrath lives in freaking Europe somewhere, in England or wherever the freak he lives. I'm like, dude, chill out. I'm like right down the street from these caves. You're a billion miles away. Like, chill. And then he kept hitting me up for stuff. And then he pushed it too far. And I'm like, dude, F off, man. You're bugging me, and I've told you to stop emailing me. It's like, you're all noise, and I'm positivity winning the day, and you're just cramping it. And so I told him off, and then he posted the email that I told him off on. I'm like, dude, you're a bitch. That's the weakest shit I've seen ever. Like, you don't do that. You don't put my email, our personal exchange, live.
So first and foremost, the most important thing to highlight is the fact no emails or email addresses were shared, released publicly. All emails and messages within were private and kept private. As for me reaching out to Sean Horlacher over time, whether it be to do with the Keyhole, another finding, the CCTV footage, there was like 2 to 3 emails sent to him about the threats and codes, right? And then one more on the Telegram app, okay? And then the next message I sent to Sean Horlacher, in which he showed resistance and showed a different side to him, is when I brought up about Really Robin and the whole mystery around him with his account disappearing, fading away, his videos being deleted, the comment section being disabled. That was an observation, and it had nothing to do with threats, warnings, which I was receiving. I was just simply pointing it out to Sean because I wasn't sure if he was aware of Really Robin and the situation. So it was an external event going on, and yet it didn't warrant Sean's response, but he did. He must have had enough, or things were going on at the time for him to respond in that way. If you do want to see complete coverage on that and a behavioural analysis of Sean Horlacher and his change in behaviour compared to what he was originally like, and then transitioning into, at that point, the key turning point, I've got that video on my channel. You probably can check it out in the comment section, the pinned part, right, with the screenshot as well. So at the end of the day, the only message which was shown publicly was Sean Horlacher's response to my question, my observation on Telegram. No public, details like that, revealed just the message response. The importance of that was to highlight the highlight in change of behaviour. Balance must be established. Balance across all people within the case, directly, indirectly. It wasn't just Sean Horlacher that changed in behaviour. The same happened to Really Robin, and then some of the individuals in between, and people coming and going and disappearing, like Eric the hiker, that supposed guy, never heard of after that, and much more. Because of that, the same had to be done with Sean, because for most part of it, most humans at the time looked up to Sean. They looked up to him in a positive way. There's nothing wrong in that. The whole community aspect, right? Watching his live streams, getting involved, doing those polls, draws for a t-shirt or something, that's what other people did, and just simply hanging out and chatting. In the early days, it was calm, it was good. I appeared a little bit here and there in the chat, right? Mosaic Michelle showed up. Nina showed up as well, who I didn't know at the time, but then eventually knew them down the line. So it's weird how people were present but didn't know each other at the time, but then, you know, fast forward on, things happened, good, bad, you know, that sort of thing. And it was just about raising awareness, right? I saw a different side to Sean, different to how everyone else has seen him. Why should that be kept secret? Why should I receive a different response and attitude? And yet everybody else sees it all positive. I'll just briefly highlight that I've got extensive experience when it comes to coming across people one-on-one, and behind closed doors, they do start to show a slightly darker side to them compared to how they appear to everyone else. And I've experienced that in real life. Was I going to let that happen again? Absolutely not. 10 to 11 years of knowing a best friend and they suddenly turn on me, psychologically bully me in real life. Is that normal? No. So alert level adaptation has transitioned with time, as I've explained clearly in my psychological breakdown video analysis of myself and how I've tied myself to cases and how I can go about them. More on that in the pinned comment section. Yet another video. Okay? So after releasing that video and that little bit of material, people started realizing, oh, I've never seen that side to Sean before. Oh. And then a few other people came in and then started thinking, oh, yeah, I started noticing a change when Sean started talking about all the political stuff, this and that, QAnon, etc., right? That could partially be why Sean's been censored or supposedly been censored, because he started talking about other themes, topics, interest, and stuff he's passionate about and what he believes in, okay? You know, he should not be censored. He doesn't deserve that. But, you know, you start changing in behavior, that at least should be highlighted because, you know, it's a change in behavior. It's an observation. It was a mystery in itself at the time, considering Sean was all about the community, welcoming ideas, welcoming observations, like with the Keyhole and much more. So with the Really Robin situation, that was yet another observation, pointing it out, reaching out, and Sean didn't seem to like that. Now there's things going on behind the scenes, as you know, been described. Robin setting up Sean, so maybe that triggered him in some way and was like, I don't want to talk about that because I have had bad experience with him. But how is one supposed to know if one's not told to begin with, right?
You brought me to a point where you pissed me off so much I had to tell you what I really felt. And then you made... What a joke, man. And now you see. Karma.
So that was very interesting what Sean said just then, that line about being pissed off so much to the point that I had to say what was really on my mind to you in a negative way. Now, wouldn't it have been better if it was said like that from the start, straight to the point? But as you heard, Sean said he's a positive person. Positivity above everything else. But then that can lead to a lack of honesty. And that is what the issue is with the majority of the human race out there. You get positivity, you get delusional positivity, you get fake positivity, the lot. It's better it being straight to the point. And from my past years of analysing human behaviour and adapting from it and being on the receiving end of negative experiences, I have concluded, as I've said previously, that it's better to be hated rather than liked, supposedly, by fake people, and then eventually they tell you what they truly think about you. If you're hated, an individual will say what's on their mind from the get-go. It's over and done with. No bullshit, no time wasting, no surprises. It's listen, hear it out, and move on. In this case, it wasn't like that. It was somewhat nice, tolerate Raph's behaviour, tolerate him in the background, and then eventually say it how it is. It would have been more practical, more efficient if it was said in the truth format, even if it's negative, from the start. You see what I'm saying? This is what humans are like, unfortunately.
But it's like, yeah, dude, now you're going back on your story and saying some other stuff like, oh, no, there wasn't no keyhole to no, everything's fine. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Like, they got to him, man.
So to an extent, it seems clear that Sean is demonstrating egocentrism, lack of reasoning ability for changes and development of thought process. But then again, quite a few humans have been like that within the Veach case, which is most unfortunate. They're the same transitioned into the Dylan Rounds case. It might just be the type of people or a certain age range. Who knows? You know, if we have to look at data or depth down the line, maybe that's a possibility. But you put that aside, in addition, you've got Sean basically being a hypocrite, okay? So he's highlighting and kind of criticizing me for changing my opinion, going back on myself. Yeah, but that's what Sean Horlacher did himself too, right? Let's not forget. As Sean said earlier on in this video clip, that he welcomed the idea of other people using his material to spread awareness and develop, and just to make sure that the Veach case continues and encourages others, right? That's basically what Sean was getting at. Well, that's not the same reply I got from Sean a few months down the line, because when Sean did snap and he had this display change in behaviour, and I shared that with the community just to highlight it as an observation and in a non-biased way, just try and question what's gone wrong, what's changed for him to be like that. It shortly followed with a direct response in the comment section by him saying, "You're not allowed to use my video footage. I'm going to report you for copyright." Well, that's going back on yourself, isn't it? Bit hypocritical, right? Having a go at me for going back on my own words when you've done the same thing, saying you can use the footage and then saying you can't use the footage. Making an agreement and then going back on that later down the line. Same example as if a person gave consent one night and then the following morning they retracted it and said, "You raped me." And it's like, you see? This is humans. This is Earth and life. A disaster. Chaotic. There you go.
Back to Wrath. So this guy freaking lost his mind and went cookie. And he's gone. He's just gone, right? He's freaking whatever.
So I would have to disagree with that claim, as the fact is, and as a fact stands, I continued covering the Veach case onwards, despite the resistance, despite the threats. I continued on and made another 100 plus videos, totaling now to 272 videos on the Veach M-Cave case and mystery for over 2 years. As for the Dylan Rounds case, I've made about 170 videos there. As for the ratio, I have made significantly more videos on Dylan Rounds than Veach. But that's just simply down to material and coverage, right? So the other part about going a bit loopy, crazy, odd, or whatever that is, I mean, all I can say is from one own's observation and testing, when it came to messing around and doing some kind of IQ test, just genuinely messing around and testing it from time to time or year to year, in the past, it's always been 99, 98, which is classified as average, which is okay. But then ever since covering mystery cases on YouTube, when I did it maybe a month ago, my IQ went up to 116. So where did that come from? Bit weird, isn't it? So I don't know if a slightly higher IQ means more craziness, but I think this is the thing what one has to acknowledge, right? At the end of the day, people within the Kenny Veach community who might show resistance in some way, you're welcome to view one of my Dylan Rounds live video premieres, and then you'll see what levels of dodginess occurs, okay? Some people will get that reference, of course, but others will be slightly perplexed, but there you go. If I had to do like a closing statement in regards to the Kenny Veach case overall, the community, I mean, there's positives, there are negatives, of course. As for levels of resistance, it can vary. If I was to compare both cases together, Dylan Rounds, the community too, as well as Kenny Veach, I'd say both sets have some good people along the way, or up to a certain point at least, okay? There are more levels of backstabbing within the Dylan Rounds case than the Kenny Veach case, but there are still rats present, just in terms of viewers, like in the past when people started choosing sides, not over facts. So there's that. I would say to an equal extent, there are certain levels of emotion behind the cases by people that get involved, like Artari. At points, she is genuine, she cares, she reaches on a deep level, but her emotions can get the better of her, which clouds and impacts her judgment, right? Accusing certain people of this or that, making the odd mistake. But I guess the important thing is she does clear it up eventually down the line, right? In the Dylan Rounds case, you get people that act a bit emotional, get a bit bitchy, moany, whingy, whiny, but that just happens. You've seen it more externally on other people's channels and panels, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's inevitable. You get people joining into a case because they feel like they relate in some way. Yeah, they're going to act maybe biased at times. They might be more defensive. But if you get someone that comes in who tries to keep balance or feels neutral, right? No relation to the case or the person. No like feeling like you can be put in the same shoes as that individual, that victim. You know, your judgment remains a bit more stable, right? We have also noticed, and I would say arguably more in the Kenny Veach community rather than the Dylan Rounds one, where there's been higher levels of level-headed people going downhill and changing in behaviour, right? That's how it seems to be. I would say there's been a greater downfall in people's behaviour in the Kenny Veach case community rather than the Dylan Rounds case community. With Dylan Rounds, there was dodgy people from day one. There was people you might be alert and aware of or a bit wary around, and that was from the beginning, right? You kind of knew what to expect, and then they started revealing themselves a bit more, then they reeled themselves back, started behaving like good little boys or girls, and then eventually went back on themselves and revealed their true form again. With the Kenny Veach case and community, it's been more of a decline. Somewhere here, and then, oh, they reveal a different side to them, and then remain there and don't come back up. As for the odd individual that's been pretty consistent, that would be the likes of, who would I say, honestly, mainly Scott Natal, right? He's done his thing, he's been hiking, he's searched. Success or not, he's done what he's done, moved on to another case, and that's it. No drama, no issues, no confrontation, no changes in behaviour, no weird stuff going on in that sense. Sure, there's been suspicions and people accusing him of stuff, but aside from that, you know, it's just been consistent, right? And you need consistency in a case, in a mystery. If you have an imbalance, there's no stability, you're not going to feel comfortable. You're going to find it hard to trust. You're going to find it hard where to go. You're going to be lost, right? You don't want that. You want a beacon of light and hope. And no, I'm not talking about spirituality. I'm just being realistic, whether that comes as negative or positive. That's just how it is, right? So I think that's another like brief little conclusion roundup of the Dylan Rounds and Kenny Veach case comparison, as well as the main contents of this video, right? As for other videos on Kenny Veach, let's just make one thing very clear, okay? As for the Kenny Veach case, I still have 17 videos to cover on it, though my focus is on the Dylan Rounds case at this moment in time, right? Does that make sense? If there is anything groundbreaking or anything really, really, really important, it will be uploaded, hence demonstrated just recently with the mineshaft and Kenny supposedly making a call on his account. Levels of that will and should be covered, right? But in the meantime, focus is on Dylan Rounds, because what's starting to happen with Dylan Rounds, it's slowly, kind of slowly fading out. Maybe boots on ground, it has not. Ty, Lance doing well, but on the outer surface, online, it is fading. Just like with TikTok, we don't want the same to happen with YouTube, right? So I'll make videos, cover the case, do what I can, providing it's somewhat valid. That's the importance. It needs to be somewhat valid and not strained. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. If you have any grievances, any issues or problems with me, list them down below. That's it for now. Good night and goodbye.